Hey everyone, welcome back to the Engineered Angler. If you don't know what that thing is, then you should watch the last video, and I'll put a link for it right up here. And you should just go and watch that first, because this video is going to be all about making hollow lures using that Rotocaster. Now in the last video, I went ahead and made my first hollow lures. That's a walk the dog topwater lure, but I also went ahead and made this little crankbait. And you can hear it's hollow, it's full of BBs, and it works really well. Still gonna have to work a little bit on figuring out weight and balance on this, because it's a little bit of a different sort of process for design. And that's what we're gonna get into today. I wanna design and shape a crankbait that's specifically designed to be able to be rotocasted into a hollow shell. So we'll be paying a little extra attention to the volume, and then we'll work out how you actually set the weight and balance on this thing, how we're gonna insert the hook hangers, and we'll make a silicone mold out of it specifically designed to work on that machine. So let's get started. We don't need this anymore. So the idea behind the shape is that we need some volume up in front of the lure to create that hollow space. And I wanted the tail to be narrow so that when we get that layering, the layer of the casting resin on the outside edge, so let's imagine it looks like that. And because we're going to be casting this lip with the whole body, it's not going to be separate, so it won't be protruding in. We'll get a cavity that looks something like that. And this way, back here, we get some solid plastic that's going to make this a little stiffer and a little stronger, holding in the tail hook eye. Now the lure is going to be perfectly symmetric because we're going to make it on the lathe. It'll just make things go a little faster. And I'll add some carving just to give it a little bit of a handmade touch. Since I'm going to have some BBs in here, and they're going to be loose, rattling around and moving forward and backwards, I do want to be able to anchor the center of mass a little more solidly. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to connect both of these eyes so that it's just a little 2-eye harness. This way I can put a weight up here in front that won't move, and will hold my center of mass a little more forward than these BBs can. The tail hook eye will just be embedded and have a couple of legs going out of bent wire just to hold that in there and ensure it can't get pulled out. So it'll be 2.5 inches long, 7/8 inch at its widest point. And of course, it's symmetric all the way around, so that means height and width. The bib I'm going to make out of a sheet of 1/8 inch Lexan. And I'm doing that because I cast this first one with the bib integrated as part of the casting. And you can see how thin it is. That's the normal thickness of a Lexan dive bib. But if you look at it, you might be able to see that it's a little bit flexible. I definitely need the stiffness of a nice thick piece of Lexan. Let's get out to the lathe and start shaping this thing. All right, I've already got a piece of wood on here, and the kind of wood that I'm using doesn't really matter. This happens to be a piece of orange wood that I got off of an orange tree that died. It doesn't really matter what I'm going to use, because this is going to end up just being a master so that I can make a mold. So since this is just a natural branch, it's not going to be perfectly round, so we got to true it up. All right, that looks pretty good. It's coming out a little rough, but I think it'll sand smooth. I've got a bit of a knot right there I'm gonna have to avoid. So we'll start our lure from there to right there. All right, that's looking pretty good. Oh. While it's still on the lathe, I want to go ahead and cut the slot for the dive bib. I'm just using my tool stand to align my saw so I can just press it up against there and just get it sawn in, so I got a nice straight cut that's perpendicular to the longitudinal line running in the center. And it doesn't have to go too deep. I'll go another millimeter in. Now I need to realign it so I can cut the next line to make it about 1/8 of an inch thick. That's got it about right. And I can knock out that little bit in the middle pretty easily. To make the dive bib, I'm going to use this square bill as a template, and then I'll cut it out on the bandsaw. And I'll refine the shape with the disc sander. All right, I've got the eyes marked. You can see them there. And I've got the spots for the hook hangers and the tie-on eye. And I'm just going to drill all this stuff out. All right, I've drawn in the little simple carving I'm going to do. If you enjoy watching me design and shape lures and you want to support the channel a bit, it's easy. It doesn't cost you anything. All you have to do is subscribe and leave a like on the videos that you enjoy watching, and don't forget to comment. I really do read every single comment. All right, I'm pretty happy with the state of this thing. It's looking pretty good. Still a lot of work to do. Remember, this is going to be a master, so the surface has to be perfect, and any detail that I want to be sort of modified, I got to do it now. And then I'll get back to you when we're ready to make the mold. I went ahead and put an initial clear coat on it just to seal it before we make the mold. With the mold box built and filled with clay, I can trim off the excess. And with the lure clear coated and the bib installed, we can go ahead and set it in the clay bed and start making the mold. And if you're interested in more detailed information on making silicone molds, I'll go ahead and leave a playlist down in the description. With the lure embedded half its thickness into the clay, I can now build up the walls of the mold box. We're about ready to pour the silicone. You notice I've got the alignment keys set in there, those little indentations. And I left a little bit of a gap up here just in case I need to put in a sprue later, because I'm pouring this without a sprue and without any vents. Hoping it'll work just fine. All right, now we just need to let the bubbles pop out of there and let it set. It'll be about 5 hours before we can pour the second half. All right, it's been about 4 or 5 hours and the silicone is nicely set, and I've gone ahead and pulled the clay out from the backside. So now we have a nice cavity to pour the second half in. But first, I have to coat all the exposed silicone with Vaseline. This will keep the next layer of silicone from sticking to this hardened silicone, because that would be a disaster. So the biggest difference between a normal mold for casting lures that are solid and this is that I don't have a sprue or a port to pour in the casting resin, and there are no vents to vent out the air as the casting resin goes in. I'm relying on the fact that the centrifugal force is going to spread the casting resin evenly along the surface of this mold, and that I won't have bubbles, hopefully. And I'll put in the casting resin by just pouring it into the half cavity that the master leaves. What I've been finding is that 50% of the volume of the actual lure is the magic number for the amount of casting resin to put in it. So far, that's worked really well. To hedge my bets just a little bit, this side of the lure is going to be embedded in the mold a little deeper than the other side, and that'll give me a deeper cavity. So if I need to add a little more, I can, just a bit more than 50%. Time to mix the mold silicone, and about 80 milliliters should be plenty for this side. Now we just let it bubble off and set. All right, it's been long enough. Feels nice and firm. Let's go ahead and pull this box apart. All right, let's see. Come on, don't stick. Oh, looking good. We got a little bit of stuck stuff right here that I can take care of with a razor knife. All right, let's go ahead and check the volume of this so I can figure out how much casting material I need to put into the mold. All right, I'm gonna put this cup of water on the scale, turn it on so it comes on 0, and then I'll submerge the lure all the way down without touching the bottom of the sides. 18.37 grams, so that means the lure is 18.37 cubic centimeters. So the other thing we're going to need is the weight of the lure body, but I'm not going to have that until I actually make a casting, because the casting is going to be hollow, this isn't. So the next step is to make a casting from regular polyurethane casting resin. That's what I made this from, but what we can get right now is the weight of our hooks and the hardware we're going to put in it. This way we'll have it for the calculation. That's our hardware right there. There's the one-piece harness for the tie-on eye and the belly hook. And there's a little figure-8 piece that's going to be for the tail hook eye. So we've got the weight in water, 18.37. And we want the total weight to be about 10% less than that, because that's the theoretical neutral weight, the weight of which the lure will just barely suspend. And that's going to be our target weight, which is 16.5 grams. And our hardware weight is going to include those 2 pieces of wire and the hooks and split rings, and that's 2.13. So let's take a look and see how close this thing came to that 16.5. And just by the way it performed in the water, I think it's a little light. Let's see, 12.22. Yeah, definitely light. It could use about 4 grams more weight. And if you want to know more about this process, I've done a couple of crankbait master classes that's free. All you got to do is go and watch them, and I'll go ahead and put the links for them in the description. All right, I'm ready to do the initial casting. And since I know the total volume is a little over 18 cubic centimeters, I'm going to mix 10 cubic centimeters, which is going to be a little more than half, which should be plenty. This stuff sets up super fast, so I've got to kind of rush through this. Looks about right. Close this guy up nice and tight. Slide it into our jaws here. Snug it down and get it cranked up. Tweak it down to a little bit of a slower pace. All right, this should take about 20 minutes before we can demold. All right, the little bit that was left at the bottom of the cup is good and hard, so I imagine we're ready. I'm hoping for the best here. Hopefully, we got enough material in there that it made that bib and everything. Oh, that looks pretty good. Oh, the bib looks perfect. A little bit of a funny spot right there, maybe a bubble. Still gonna need a little bit of sanding, but not much. The bib is nice and smooth, that's good. I cut my finger, so just in case you was wondering what that was. I cleaned it up and it looks pretty good. I gotta say, it's not perfect because of the master. The master apparently had some bad spots in the clear coat that I didn't see, so that's what happens when you get in a hurry. But I can sand away the little defects, and the seam line was perfect. It was just barely showing, and I was able to sand away most of that, and I'm really happy. So let's go ahead and get a weight on this thing, so at least we have something to go by on the next one we cast out of this stuff. Okay, the weight of the body, white casting resin, is 9.33 grams. So the next experiment is to try to cast a clear lure, a lure that'll look a lot like a blank that you can buy online. I've only experimented a little bit with clear casting resins and it hasn't gone that well, but I've got something different. I've got this stuff. This is surfboard resin. It's a polyester resin. It's from boat suppliers. The nice thing about this is it sets crystal clear. It off bubbles pretty well, and I can set the time of cure by adding a little more or a little less hardener. And it's UV stabilized because it's supposed to go on surfboards so it can take sun without yellowing or getting brittle. So let's give this a shot. All right, so this is what this stuff looks like. It's got a pale blue kind of tone to it until it sets. And now I gotta add the hardener, and it's only gonna take about 3 drops. 1, 2, 3, and I gotta hurry now. Can't mess around too much. This stuff sets up pretty quickly too. Not quite as fast as that casting resin, but still, definitely don't wanna screw around. Once it kicks, there's no going back. Okay, there you go. All right, let's get it rolling. All right, I'm giving it a little more force because I think this stuff was getting kind of viscous, but we can slow it down now, I think. I should be able to demold this in about 20-25 minutes. In the meantime, let's take this one to the bandsaw and cut it in half lengthwise, and let's see what it looks like on the inside. So let's see how thick those walls are. All right, check that out. Pretty cool, really glossy on the inside. You can see it's a little thin right there and a little thicker up front, which that's all right with me. I think that's gonna work just right. I don't think I wanna put less material in, that's for sure. All right, I let it spin for like 25 minutes, then I turned it off and let it sit for like another 45 minutes. So it's been there for a while. Hoping it's gonna be good and solid. Again, first time trying it, so. Check that out. So just looking at it right here, I can see that it's really thick right there and the cavity is really small. So I really need to pour a lot less material in there, but I really like the way it looks. Look how nice and crystalline the bib is, but I can feel it's a little tacky. So that means we're gonna have to give these guys a little more time than I thought. But for right now, we're gonna set this aside and I'm gonna go ahead and cast another one with a little bit less material, but I'm gonna have all the hardware on it. We'll put some hooks on it, some BBs inside it, and we'll take it down to the lake, see what it looks like. All right, I turned this thing off after about 25 minutes or so, and then I just let it sit all night. It's a new day. Let's see how this thing looks. All right, check that out. I'm seeing a much better distribution of material. That looks much, much better. Let me show you the other one for comparison. You can see on this one, that big solid block in the back and how even this is. Let's drill a hole in it, put some BBs in it. But before we do that, let's go ahead and take a measurement. Because remember, we're shooting for 16.5 grams total weight. So we'll need the weight of the hooks and the split rings and the lure. There you go, 16.48. That's exactly what we need. So I'll drill a BB size hole. And then I'll just pop them in one at a time. And I think this is the last one. All right, let's double check the weight. All right, let's try 16.45, perfect. And a quick patch for the BB hole with some UV resin. And that's what that looks like, and I can give it a little sanding to smooth it off a little bit, but for right now, who cares? All right, look at that. I'm impressed that we actually got this to work. Let's put the hooks on. So cool. All right, I've got it tied on with a loop knot. Let's see what it looks like in the water. It's got a really nice action. Let's see if I can get some underwater shots. All right, it's looking really good in the water. Wish I had a paint job on it already. And that rattle, I'm hoping it comes through on the camera, but you can hear it above here. So I'm gonna go ahead and do just a little bit of fishing. Don't have a whole lot of expectations. Middle of the day, 90-degree water. It's definitely dog days of summer. Oh my God, I just shot it halfway across the lake. Can't believe I did that. All right, there's still a lot more experimentation I can do with this hollow casting stuff. I'm thinking a nice big shrimp with maybe one ball in it, or, well, of course, we still got to go try soft plastic stuff. Maybe a nice frog with a double hook in it. If you guys have ideas for hollow lures, let's chat about it in the comments. So I'm going to keep fishing a little bit, and if you want to see another really cool design, click on this video that YouTube's offering you right now. See you guys on the next video.